Hey, what's up, everyone? Johnny DC here, giving you a quick heads up at the top of the episode to let you know that we have redesigned our website. If you've never visited dynamicduel.com, or you haven't visited in a while, be sure to check it out as you can listen to all of our episodes there, see the episode artwork, see what Joseph and I look like, Joseph's fugly, and get links to our bonus content and merchandise where you can get 35% off your first order on TeePublic, if you use the link from our site. So again, visit dynamicduel.com, that's duel with an E, and get the best podcast experience from our show. On with the show! Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And in this episode, we are pitting Swamp Thing against Man-Thing.
Yeah, this has been a long-awaited episode, I think, for me personally.
I've both been looking forward to this and dreading it.
Right, because the characters are so powerful and so similar that it's going to be really hard to determine how exactly the fight will go.
Exactly, and this is all lead up to the Swamp Thing television series that will be premiering at the end of this month on the DC Universe streaming platform.
Right, and that's why we reviewed the Swamp Thing 1982 movie in our last episode, and we're just riding that Swamp Thing wave right now.
Before we get on to the duel, we're going to break down the news items from the past week, of which it's all Batman related.
Boo, what a lame episode.
It's Batman. It's Batman. So we're definitely going to be talking about Robert Pattinson potentially being cast as Batman in Matt Reeve's Batman film. Then we're going to talk about the CW's first look trailer for Batwoman, which I think premieres in the fall, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But if you want to skip around, our segment times are in the episode description, so feel free to do that.
Right, if you're listening to this episode, months down the line, all the news we're talking about is old news, so just go ahead and skip ahead.
But before we get into the news, we just want to give a quick shout out to Figger Jug Urge Eb Ix Ig Jug Jug Big Edged In, who gave us...
There's nothing wrong with your audio, that's just how it's spelled.
Right, who gave us a review on iTunes.
Yeah, and that review counted toward our 105 ratings that we currently have for our show. Again, we're trying to get to 200 ratings because at that point, we become eligible to become critics on the Rotten Tomatoes website where we can have our Marvel and DC film reviews count toward those movies' official tomato meters. So it's a huge goal of ours. If you guys could help us out by rating us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, or at least sharing the show with somebody who has an iTunes account, it'd be super appreciated, super helpful. We know we've been talking about this for a while, and hopefully we don't have to talk about it for too much longer because we'll have met that goal. And with that out of the way,
quick, to the No Prize!
A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week's question was a psychological test, kind of. It was, if you could be any character from the original Watchmen comic series, who would you be and why? And we got a lot of answers here. Basically, it all came down to which flaws you could live with as a superhero.
Yeah, none of them are like true altruistic heroes.
We were really interested in seeing how you guys would answer. Our first honorable mention goes to Mr. Bodo Winter, who said he'd prefer to be Dr. Manhattan because of his big blue dong.
Adam Speeds gave a similar answer, saying that he wanted to be Dr. Manhattan because he hates pants. And when you're omnipotent, you can walk around with your big blue penis flopping in the wind, and no one can do shit about it.
I hate pants too. As soon as I go home from work, pants always come off.
Yeah, gross. Salvador Martinez also gave the answer Dr. Manhattan because he's godlike, and Salvador is also cursed with too much knowledge.
Aren't we all?
Iranagami gave the answer Night Owl because he doesn't want to die painfully to get his powers, or have a fucked up traumatic childhood, or be a bigoted rapist, or commit genocide.
Yeah.
Those are all great reasons.
He just wants to be the guy who can't get the boner. And out of all those flaws, I'd rather be that guy.
Yeah.
Honorable mention goes to Kieran Palmare, who gave the answer Ozymandias, as he fancies himself as the smartest person in the room. We have a lot of listeners who think they're like really smart, huh?
Yeah, they must be. They're listening to this podcast.
That's correct.
Joel Seagrave gave the answer Night Owl since he's a realistic Batman.
And final honorable mention goes to Caleb Albers, who gave the answer Rorschach because he can be a suspicious loner type.
Can't we all? So the winner of this question of the week goes to the person who we felt gave the most reasoned and well thought out answer. It was actually pretty long. And the winner is Aaron Alexander Jones, who said that for him, it's less about what each character can do and more about which flaws he could live with. Rorschach has convictions for truth above comfort, but he's also violent, homeless, and anyone who comes around his line of thinking tends to lose hope. Dr. Manhattan has all the powers, but he experiences time all at once, so he can't change anything and will always see things play out the same way over and over, causing a sense of apathy towards other people. Aaron Alexander Jones said that he would lean more towards Dr. Manhattan, as even if he were one day proven to not be immortal, he could still live forever by shifting his consciousness back and forth to every moment not involving his end. And reliving life's moments is something he wouldn't mind even if the zest was lost. There's a great answer, but we can't really ask this question without asking it of ourselves.
Oh,
so
shit.
who would you be?
Night Owl.
Because you don't mind not having boners?
No, that's what Viagra's for.
Honestly, I've thought about this question a lot. I think I'd be Rorschach.
Yeah, you would.
Because people just piss me off. I'm telling you.
I think we got some insight into you right there. Congrats again to Aaron Alexander Jones for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want to win your own No Prize, go ahead and stay tuned to later on this episode when we ask another question of the week. With all that out of the way,
on to the news. Okay, so last week, Variety reported that Robert Pattinson had been cast as Batman in Matt Reeves' upcoming Batman film. And the internet exploded.
Right. And I also think that report was contradicted by Deadline, who said that Robert Pattinson had not been confirmed yet, but was also still in the running alongside Nicholas Hoult.
Right. It was Deadline and The Hollywood Reporter who both reported that. But here's the thing. The Variety article was written by Justin Kroll, who, if you follow him as a journalist, know that he has deep ties with Warner Brothers. Everything he reports, he's always the first one to report it, and it's always accurate.
So it's likely that we're going to have the Twilight guy as our new Batman.
Which is how a lot of people are interpreting this, because anyone only knows Robert Pattinson from the Twilight franchise.
And I guess he had like a cameo in the Harry Potter films or something like that?
He was in the Goblet of Fire film, I think.
Okay.
But that was before Twilight.
Yeah, we do have to give a huge shout out to Jacob Bell, who in a few episodes ago, it was our Steel versus War Machine episode, we asked as our question of the week, who do listeners think will be the new Batman actor? And he was the one who answered Robert Pattinson. And I think our reaction at the time was like, meh, I don't hate it. And then you proceeded to gush about how the Twilight films were your favorite movies of all time.
What? I don't think that
Go back and listen to the episode. Right. That's what happened.
All right, I will. I don't hate this choice. I know there's a lot of fans, they're petitioning Warner Brothers on change.org to change this casting choice, even though he hasn't really been cast yet.
And it's just because of the Twilight series, right?
Exactly,
they don't want to have an actor from that primarily female-dominated franchise to be their favorite comic book character.
And I'm kind of asking, why?
Having never seen the Twilight films, I do think that Robert Pattinson has the look for the character. He has very dark, striking features. He's 6'1". He's not a small guy by any means.
No. And he's definitely not as pale in real life as he was in those films,
And he definitely doesn't sparkle, right? I mean, I think, how long has it been since the Twilight series ended? It's been like 7 years, I think, now.
Yeah.
And by the time this movie comes out, it'll be probably almost 10 years.
And he's been in a lot of other films besides Twilight. I think he has 4 films coming out this year alone.
Oh, really?
He's going to star in Christopher Nolan's upcoming film. We don't know anything about it yet. That is pretty cool. I think he's going to get a lot of star power and a lot of exposure from that film. How many people are not going to see that film just because it stars the Twilight guy? I don't think it's really any reason not to see it. And honestly, if you gave me the choice between Robert Pattinson and Nicholas Hoult, Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, Nicholas Hoult is Beast. And also, his mouth is too goddamn small.
He's kind of too much of a pretty boy. Whereas Robert Pattinson, yeah, he has a lot of...
Robert Pattinson is also a pretty boy.
But he's also a little bit more darker looking. He's a little bit less commercial. Say what you want about the Twilight films, he looked cool. He just has this cool aura about him.
Kind of like Lost Boys, but for pussies.
Yes, that exactly.
Yeah. But let's go back to Nicholas Holt's mouth, right? It's too small. Every time he speaks... It looks like he's speaking out of like this.
I don't know. I've never really paid attention to that.
It's just my opinion. I don't know. But also, he's Beast, and I don't want him to go over to DC, even though I'm ready for the Fox X-Men franchise to end.
Above all, what's most important about this role is that you hire someone who's a good actor. And I'm really confident in whoever Matt Reeves chooses to be his Batman.
He is a great director, and he is great at casting.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I'm still gonna miss Ben Affleck. But we already know that Matt Reeves is looking for a younger actor to play Batman.
Right, he was looking for someone in the age range of 25 to 35 because this movie is supposed to take place early on in Batman's career.
And also, they want to establish a franchise, and they don't want someone aging too fast so that they can't handle the physicality of the role.
I do think that Pattinson will have to bulk up, though.
Yeah, he definitely needs to bulk up, but I don't think, that'll be a problem. Sometimes actors are, like, contractually obligated to bulk up, so they get paid to do it.
Yeah, and he's going to want to be bulk because reports are saying that this film's script features 6 different villains, including Penguin and Catwoman.
Yeah, up to 6 villains, according to The Hollywood Reporter, which is insane.
Makes you think that they're adapting something like The Long Halloween?
Or Hush. Probably not Hush, because they're doing the animated Hush film soon. But yeah, The Long Halloween, that would be amazing. And this all brings us to our question of the week. Other than the Penguin and Catwoman, what other 4 Bat villains would you like to see in the upcoming Batman film?
Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media.
So in other news, the CW released their first look trailer at their Batwoman television series, which again I think debuts in the fall. And it's a pretty sweet trailer. It's a long trailer. It's 3 minutes long.
Yeah, I was surprised how long it was. A lot of it was set up. We didn't really get to see Batwoman herself until like the last minute.
Right, and I think it pulls a lot of footage from the pilot, because we get introduced to her father, who seems to be some kind of security manager, who runs a corporation known as the Crows, which was interesting.
I guess that's a security service for Gotham, considering that in the story, the character of Batman has disappeared somehow.
I hate that. I always hate that. It's like, just focus on Batwoman. Like, the Batwoman comic doesn't need Batman to be missing.
Right.
It's irritating the way they do that.
But missing Batman is the whole catalyst for Batwoman's origin in this show, because she's somehow aware that Bruce Wayne, her cousin, is Batman, and she goes down into his cave and kind of commandeers his suit from Lucius Fox, or his son, or something like that.
Luke Fox.
Luke Fox, okay.
Well, she learns that Bruce Wayne is Batman in this trailer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she just stumbles upon his Batcave, essentially.
It seemed like she went down there with purpose.
Well, yeah, she's looking for her cousin, but she didn't know that he was Batman.
Oh, okay.
And really what brings her to Gotham is the kidnapping of her former lover back from her military days. This was during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell era, and, she was in a relationship with another female soldier, which is why she was dishonorably discharged, which comes exactly from the comics.
Oh, really?
There's a lot of people who are kind of making a lot of comments about the politics of this show, but honestly, again, this is the character. I was amazed at how faithful to the source material this trailer actually was.
Yeah, I mean, there were some comments where, like, Luke Fox was saying that the Batman suit is perfect, and she was saying it's not perfect until it's fitted for a woman.
And yeah, she's a woman.
Right, she would say that.
And she's obviously a woman who could kick a lot of ass, because when she's going after Alice, I think she's like a Mad Hatter tie-in.
Okay.
When she's like going after her lover and she's kicking all those goons' ass, she's really kicking ass. Like, the action in this looks as good as Arrow, which has good action.
Okay. I was surprised that the suit itself did not even really look like the Batwoman suit until like the very last shot of the trailer, because she goes around through most of this without the red hair that's coming out the back of the mask,
right,
or like the red bat emblem or the red lipstick or anything like that,
right.
But when we do see that, it looks so damn cool.
It does look cool.
She is the perfect Batwoman.
It's such a good aesthetic with that red hair and the red emblem.
Yeah.
It's a really cool costume. I really want to do a Duel episode with her. Maybe when her show is released, we'll find something.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
One thing that really stands out in this trailer for me is just Ruby Rose's attitude. Like, she comes across as such a badass.
Yeah, and sometimes that could be annoying, but she definitely backs it up.
Yeah, try and tell her that she's not a badass. She will punch you right in the face. I haven't been keeping up with too many of the CW shows, actually really any of them. I just watch the crossover episodes now because it's just way too much TV. I just can't keep up with everything that DC puts out, But I will definitely catch the pilot for this.
Yeah. I'm not sure how popular the show is going to be, especially considering the primary demographic for these shows are, adolescent to young adult males.
Well, Supergirl is going strong.
Oh, really?
I mean, not quality-wise, but, it still has a large fan base.
Okay. So, yeah, maybe this Batwoman show will pick up the same demographic as Supergirl. which is like the adolescent to young adult female audience.
Right. I mean, that's the CW as well. I mean, they have Jane the Virgin, they have Riverdale. They have a lot that appeals to that demographic.
Sweet. All right. Well, I think that does it for all of the news for this episode. So let's go ahead and get into the main event where we find out who's going to win in a fight between Swamp Thing and Man Thing.
Okay, Swamp Thing versus Man Thing. Two swamp things. What more is there to say? If it's the perfect matchup, there's really no other people that these two guys could go up against.
I mean, I was considering pitting Groot against Swamp Thing, but considering that Groot is a lot more fragile than Man Thing, I had to go with Man Thing on this one. And also, I just really like Man Thing. You know, he's had his own film too, and we'll eventually get to that review whenever we get to that.
Yeah, it was a sci-fi original, right?
Yeah, the character design, as far as that film goes, was just incredible. I have a little mushy spot in my heart for the character Man Thing, so I'm excited about this one.
I do have to say, he probably has the worst name out of any character in comics. Man Thing? Really?
Yeah, especially the giant-sized issues where the title says Giant-Sized Man Thing.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
But, I mean, Man Thing did come out before Swamp Thing.
There's actually some controversy about that, right? Because I guess the creator of Swamp Thing was roommates with the creator of Man Thing. And I think both of them insist that they came up with the idea first.
Well, it doesn't matter who came up with the idea first. It matters who was published first, right?
But it also matters who is, like, the better character.
Man Thing.
Marvel rushed to publish Man Thing before
You don't
Swamp
know
Thing.
shit about what happened. Don't act like you know what you're talking about.
I know everything. I'm like Dr. Manhattan. So if you haven't listened to one of our Duel episodes before, the way we determine the winner of these matches is statistics. There's no bias, no fan votes, no uncharacteristic feats of strength. It's just all stats all the time.
Right, and we take the character stats, which are pulled from the official Marvel Power Rankings from Marvel, and we use those guidelines to extrapolate the DC character stats. We take those numbers and we run 1,000 simulations with them using the Monte Carlo simulation, which basically randomizes each stat number along a normal distribution, which is a bell curve, and that randomization represents all the variables that would take place in battle. So we compare those numbers against each other 1,000 times, and from there we get a percentage of wins for each character. The character with the highest percentage of wins out of 1,000 matches is the one that we declare the winner for that duel overall.
It's all science-based because Joseph and I are extremely biased, and this is the most mathematical, objective way to find a winner.
I'm not biased. Marvel is just objectively better.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so before we get into the actual simulations, what we like to do is we like to give you guys a background of each character and go over their abilities as well, and then speculate on how we think one of the 1,000 matches would actually play out. So I think I'll go first this episode and give you guys the backstory of the character of Man Thing. So Man Thing was once a man named Dr. Ted Sallis, who was a biochemistry professor who once developed a serum for the US military called SO2. It would give soldiers immunity to all types of toxic chemicals, but it had the side effect of grotesquely disfiguring its users.
Yeah.
Ted fell in love with one of his biochemistry students named Ellen Brandt, and they got married, soon after which Ted was recruited by the army into Project Gladiator, whose mission was to recreate the super soldier serum that had transformed Captain America in World War II. Although Ted's early SO2 serum was a failure, it had enough potential for him to use it as the basis for his new super soldier formula. He poured himself into his work, ignoring his wife Ellen, who had secretly joined the evil organization AIM. As Ted completed his formula, AIM agents ambushed his lab, causing Ted to destroy his notes and flee with the only existing sample of the serum. Ted fled from the lab in his car and injected himself with the serum to keep it away from AIM, who was chasing him. He crashed his vehicle in the swamp in a horrible wreck that should have taken his life. However, he was saved by the healing properties of his super soldier formula and the magical energies of the swamp, as his body reformed near a mystical portal to every point in the multiverse, known as the Nexus of all realities. Sallis's body transformed, absorbing the properties of the swamp and losing his intelligence in the process to become the creature known as Man-Thing. He attacked and killed the AIM agents who were chasing him and horribly burned his wife Ellen, who unbeknownst to him happened to be pregnant at the time. Man-Thing retreated into the swamp to become a local legend. His previous life as Ted Sallis unknown to virtually everyone except AIM. The organization eventually captured him and brought him back to their base, where they planned to study him and learn Sallis' secret formula. However, Man-Thing slipped through their bars and blew up the base with him inside. He reformed in the swamp and discovered Ellen, whose burns had healed. She tried reaching out to him, but with his mind gone, Man-Thing did not recognize who she was. His early adventures usually consisted of helping those who had wandered into the swamp who had been wronged, causing fear and burning those who had hurt others, such as an abusive husband, a racist cop, and a corrupt businessman. Man-Thing eventually met Jennifer Kale, a teenage witch, who was the cousin of Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider, and the granddaughter of a cult leader who was based in the Florida Everglades.
I thought her name sounded familiar.
Yeah, you can learn more about Ghost Rider in our Etrigan the Demon vs. Ghost Rider Duel episode. She accidentally summoned a demon named Thog into the swamp, whom Man-Thing defeated and sent back to the underworld. He and Jennifer Kale later found themselves trapped in a mystical dimension where they met Da Kim, the Enchanter, who revealed Man-Thing's role as the protector of the nexus of all realities and explained how only Man-Thing could close the doorways between worlds. Over time, many creatures and beings would find themselves transported into Man-Thing's swamp via the Nexus, including the anthropomorphic duck Howard, whom you can learn more about in our Detective Chimp vs. Howard the Duck episode. Together, he and Man-Thing investigated the construction magnate F.A. Schist, who was planning to build an airport in the swamp. The trail led them to the Overmaster, a demon who kidnapped Jennifer Kale and sought to take over all realities in the Nexus. They rescued her and hopped across dimensions to fight Overmaster, discovering that he was the demon Thog, who Jennifer had summoned earlier, and he was in the dimension of Theria, hoping to steal the godlike power of that reality's inhabitants. After Thog was defeated, Man-Thing returned to the swamp. He eventually teamed up alongside Ghost Rider, Morbius, and Werewolf by Night to form the Legion of Monsters, and defeated a being known as Starseed. Doctor Strange's villain Baron Mordo once restored Sallis' mind within the monster and tried to manipulate him into joining his evil side. But Jennifer Kale was able to thwart Mordo's plot, and Man-Thing again lost his intelligence. He journeyed alongside Franklin Richards after the psychic entity known as Onslaught destroyed his parents, Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. With Man-Thing's guidance, Franklin slowly came to accept their deaths. However, it later turned out that Franklin had simply sent all the missing heroes to a pocket dimension, and you can learn more about this in our Mira vs. Invisible Woman Duel episode. At one point, the nexus of all realities fractured, and Man-Thing and his former wife Ellen Brandt had to recover its fragments from many of those who had traveled through the portal before, including Howard the Duck. However, all of reality was destroyed when the villain, Mr. Terminius, used one of the fragments to shatter the Nexus. However, the consciousness of the Nexus combined with the love shared between Ted, Ellen, and their long-lost son Job. That collection formed a powerful being that was able to maintain the dream of existence and restore reality.
Wow.
Though Ted's consciousness was now part of this new being, the magic of the swamp reformed Man-Thing and instilled in it Ted's residual memory. So while this new Man-Thing was no longer technically Ted Sallis, it was essentially exactly the same.
What?
A somewhat mindless swamp creature with the subconscious duty of protecting the Nexus. Man-Thing was later captured and taken to the Raft prison. Hank Pym studied the creature and was able to use its connection to the Nexus to transport the Thunderbolts team wherever they needed to be. At one point in Chicago, Man-Thing helped the team by absorbing a horde of other dimensional monsters that caused him to grow into a giant-sized Man-Thing. Ugh! And he later shrunk down. But during the Fear Itself storyline, the world's fear turned him into an all-powerful rage monster that had to be stopped by Howard the Duck, She-Hulk, Nighthawk, and Frankenstein's monster. Most recently, Man-Thing was rounded up by S.H.I.E.L.D. as a wildcard element in their supernatural team dubbed the Howling Commandos. Powers-wise, Man-Thing is immortal. Because he's not entirely human and made entirely of swamp muck, all physical attacks pass right through him. If he's damaged enough to be dismembered, he can simply reconstitute his body. As long as some remnants of vegetation are around, Man-Thing cannot be destroyed. Though his brain cannot reason, process thoughts, or make long-term memories, he can empathically sense the emotions of those within his vicinity. Without emotions nearby, Man-Thing is inert. Mild emotions draw the creature out due to his curiosity, while negative emotions such as anger or fear cause Man-Thing to become uncomfortable. This causes his body to secrete a powerful sulfuric acid that can burn through anything, including Luke Cage's skin. The more powerful the negative emotions are around him, the more dangerous Man-Thing becomes, though he only attacks those that emotionally provoke him. Man-Thing can lift somewhere in the 25 to 75 ton range according to Marvel.com stats, and he has a teleportation device placed inside him that was used to transport the Thunderbolts, although Man-Thing himself cannot activate or steer the teleportation device. Man-Thing does also have sharp claws that he can use to tear things apart, namely Swamp Things. Because Swamp Thing's going down.
Not against Man-Thing, he's not.
Yeah, he is.
Nah. Honestly, there's no way that these two are going to be able to physically hurt each other. This is going to be really hard.
Oh, there's a way for Man-Thing to physically hurt Swamp Thing.
You think there is, but you don't know Swamp Thing. Let me get into his backstory. So Dr. Alec Holland was a botanist who was developing a biorestorative formula with his wife Linda that would allow vegetation to grow in harsh, barren environments, such as deserts. During their research in a Louisiana swamp, however, an ecological terrorist group known as the Conclave attacked their lab while Alex was alone in an attempt to steal the formula for profit. An explosion destroyed his research and killed Alec, sending his flaming body deep into the swamp along with their formula. Alex's body was seemingly restored thanks to his formula and the surrounding swamp vegetation, and he later emerged from the muck as this Swamp Thing, only to be discovered by government agent Matthew Cable, who had been assigned to protect the scientists. Linda had recently been found murdered in her bedroom, done in secret by the Conclave shortly after Alex's funeral in an effort to tie up loose ends, and Cable believed the Swamp Thing was responsible for both Alex and Linda's death. Cable hunted Swamp Thing as Alex searched for a way to return to his normal human form. During his quest, Alec met a scientist/sorcerer named Anton Arcane, who was obsessed with immortality and became fascinated by Swamp Thing's restorative potential. In an attempt to swap bodies with Swamp Thing, Arcane instead transformed into an old man after Alec sabotaged the process when he learned of Arcane's experiments in creating Frankenstein monster-like patchwork zombie creatures he called Unmen. After defeating Arcane, Swamp Thing was sought after by General Avery Sunderland, who also wished to unlock the secrets of Alec's biorestorative formula. After blasting a massive hole in Swamp Thing's body, Sunderland's men brought it to their headquarters and learned that Swamp Thing wasn't Alec Holland at all, but instead a swamp plant that somehow obtained the memories of Alec Holland.
What a ripoff.
Except that this happened before
You don't know when Man-Thing issues were published.
This was established by Alan Moore, like in the 70s.
Who cares?
I do.
Whatever.
After regrowing his missing plant tissue, Swamp Thing discovered the truth about his origin during his escape and went into a mindless rage, killing General Sunderland and his men. In shock, Swamp Thing rooted himself in the swamp and dreamt for 3 weeks, during which time his consciousness drifted into a realm known as the Green, a realm that ties all plant life on Earth. Struggling with the fact that he was not Alec Holland, Swamp Thing befriended Abigail Arcane, the niece of his old enemy. She was married to Matthew Cable, Alec's former guard, whom Abby met during his days tracking Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing and Abby's growing relationship made Cable jealous and drove him to alcoholism, which further pushed Abby towards Swamp Thing. Cable was mortally wounded in a car accident, and his body was possessed by the spirit of Anton Arcane, who had become a low-level demon in Hell. After several weeks, Abby caught on that Cable was possessed by her uncle, and he killed her and banished her soul to Hell.
Whoa.
Swamp Thing traveled beyond the Green through the spirit world to Hell, where he fought legions of demons with the help of the demon prince Etrigan to reclaim Abby's soul, which he did and restored it to her body. Soon after, a sorcerer named John Constantine, who you can learn more about in our Constantine vs. Brother Voodoo episode, found Swamp Thing and informed him that he was the plant elemental protector of the Green. Together, the two traveled across America, defeating monsters and demons, and lead up to the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where DC's multiverse was merged into one reality. After the merger, the fabric of reality was unstable, allowing a group of witches to summon a great darkness that would destroy the one remaining reality. After learning more about the Green and his role as its protector from his predecessors at the Parliament of Trees in the Amazon rainforest, Swamp Thing convinced Deadman, the Phantom Stranger, the Spectre, and Etrigan the Demon to join forces with him and Constantine to fight the Great Darkness, which they did, though it was ultimately Swamp Thing who, after being consumed by the darkness, convinced it of the beauty of creation and the necessary balance between both evil and good, death and life. After saving reality, Swamp Thing was attacked by the Department of Defense in retaliation for him killing General Sunderland. Using a communication scrambler developed by Lex Luthor, the government cut Swamp Thing off from Earth's green frequency and set him ablaze with napalm.
Oh.
In order to survive, Swamp Thing tuned into an alien frequency and regrew his body on an alien planet using its local vegetation. After traveling across several planets, Swamp Thing returned to Earth, only to find that the Parliament of Trees thought he was dead, and had begun growing a sprout that would be the new elemental protector once it bonded with a human spirit. Ignoring the Parliament's warning that the existence of two elemental protectors would throw nature into disarray, Swamp Thing used Constantine's unwilling body to consummate his relationship with Abby, conceiving a child for the Sprout to bind to.
Oh, weird.
Unknown to Swamp Thing at the time, Constantine's body contained blood from the demon Nergal, and because his newborn daughter Tefei was a plant and human hybrid, she had connections to both the green and the red, which is the mystic realm that connects all animal life, including humans.
Mm-hmm.
As an infant, when Tefei witnessed her father disappear into the green, she tried to do the same, accidentally destroying her body and sending her spirit to hell, which was discovered by Arcane and given to Nergal. Swamp Thing attempted to fight Nergal to win his daughter's spirit back, but in the end, Tefei was able to open her own window back to Earth, destroying a city of demons in the process. Swamp Thing and Abby brought Tefei to the Parliament of Trees, who helped reconstruct her a new body. She stayed within the Parliament along with Abby so that there would be only one green elemental in our realm in order to maintain the balance of nature. During the event of the Blackest Night storyline, in which DC's dead characters came back to life as zombie Black Lanterns, the green was corrupted, and Swamp Thing became a mindless being of destruction. Alec Holland's real body was resurrected from the swamps, and though he had no memory of ever being Swamp Thing, Alec nevertheless heroically stepped up to the plate and bonded his body to Swamp Thing, restoring the green. Alec Holland's history was one of the few not rewritten by the New 52. Now able to transform from Swamp Thing into his human form, Alec stepped away from his role as elemental protector of the green and tried to return to botany, only to answer the call of heroism once again when the realm of death known as the Rot began to emerge in the world and tried to make Abby its champion. Alec was killed with a chainsaw by one of the Rot's monsters.
Whoa.
Though he had a vial of his biorestorative formula on him, and his destroyed body was replaced by vegetation, fully becoming Swamp Thing once again, defeating the Rot and even joining Justice League Dark alongside his old friend John Constantine. Swamp Thing's body is composed entirely of vegetable matter, which he can grow and manipulate at his whim. This grants him superhuman strength on a level few superheroes are capable of. If he needs to be stronger, he just grows bigger. He can fully control all plant matter, allowing him to create duplicates of himself or teleport to other areas with plant life by forming a new body from that vegetation. His body is extremely durable, but if it is damaged, he can simply regenerate or grow himself a new body. As long as there's plant life, he is essentially immortal. He's also
Did you copy my paper?
No. He's also a low-level telepath, capable of interacting with others' minds, as his very being is solely a mental essence. His only weakness is pollution.
And fire.
No, fire doesn't hurt him.
What are you talking about fire doesn't hurt him? You just told me how he was destroyed with napalm.
He can just slough off the burning vegetation.
Okay, we'll see what happens. So that does it for the histories and abilities of these characters. What we like to do now is, before running the simulations themselves, we go ahead and speculate on how we think one out of the 1,000 matches would actually play out. beat for beat. So we don't set any rules for this match, except for the fact that the characters don't know anything about each other other than that they are threats to each other that need to be defeated. They start at about 50 meters apart from each other in a non-environment location where the environment plays no factor within the battle itself.
Because certain characters could have certain advantages in some environments over others.
Right, so if this matchup between Swamp Thing and Man-Thing took place in the middle of a desert, it would play out much differently than if it took place in an actual swamp. Although I can't imagine this fight taking place in any other location besides a swamp.
It almost has to be a swamp.
Yeah, but don't think about that. Location does not play a factor. So let's go ahead and get started with this duel matchup. So the characters start off 50 yards apart. Who goes first? I'm going to answer this. Obviously, Swamp Thing goes first because Man-Thing will not even react until he is provoked. Man-Thing is just going to stand there, basically.
Well, here's the thing I've been wondering about. Man-Thing is provoked by negative emotion, correct?
Yes.
Well, these two know that each other are threats and are intent on taking each other down.
Man-Thing doesn't really know anything. Like, you could tell him that he needs to beat this guy, but he's not going to do it unless he's provoked. So that's why he's just standing there.
I can't wait to get into his intelligence stat.
Damn it. That being said, Swamp Thing knows that he has to take this creature out, so Swamp Thing is going to attack Man-Thing. How?
He's going to start off by summoning some tendrils right underneath Man-Thing and just like trying to squeeze him and crush him.
Well, that was your first mistake because now that you've started attacking Man-Thing, guess what? Man-Thing can read off of Swamp Thing's violent emotions. His body starts oozing that sulfuric acid that burns anything that it touches. Okay? So these vines that are wrapping around Man-Thing's legs, guess what? They're burning off of him.
Okay, so Swamp Thing definitely thinks it's strange that those vines are suddenly burning on fire. So he tries to do like a low-level psychic reading of Man-Thing's mind.
Well, Man-Thing doesn't have a mind, so he's not going to get much out of it.
Okay.
So Man-Thing is severely perturbed by Swamp Thing attacking him, so at this point, Man-Thing goes on the offensive. He can't really like run that fast, but he's going to run about as fast as he can with his sharp claws exposed, and he's going to start just ripping Swamp Thing. He's just going to rip his arm straight off.
Well, he has to reach Swamp Thing first.
Uh-huh.
So right when Man-Thing gets close, Swamp Thing grows like this huge tree, like in his hands, and he just like swings at Man-Thing like he's a baseball.
Man-Thing probably got like smashed to a goop right there, but Man-Thing can reconstitute himself from a small goop. So that's what he does. He kind of like regrows his body from the big messy mud pile that was just created.
Well, how fast can he reconstitute?
That's a good question. You know, they never state that in the comics, but it's fairly quick. I would assume like 10 seconds.
Okay, so as Swamp Thing sees Man-Thing's body like reconstituting, that's when he like grows this cage that just forms around Man-Thing that like doesn't have any like holes in it whatsoever.
If it's made out of plant life, it's gonna have holes.
No, because it's just so dense and so like well made.
Well, Man-Thing reforms and then he grows too big for the cage. It breaks and he just oozes out of it.
This is Swamp Thing's like really strong cage.
Okay, but it's also made out of plants, which Man-Thing can easily break. So he gets out of the cage and then sets the cage ablaze because it's part of Swamp Thing, right? And then lifts it off the ground and then just tosses it at Swamp Thing. So now Swamp Thing's on fire.
Oh crap. Okay, so I guess Swamp Thing's on fire, but again, like, he could just slough off that vegetation. He'll be like slightly smaller.
What if it's his head that's burning?
He doesn't need a head. It's not like he has a brain.
Okay.
His head will burn off and then he'll just regrow a new head.
So I'm trying to picture this. So like, say the top half of his body is on fire. He just kind of like, just fucking tosses off the top half of his body.
Yeah, he could do that. And then from the bottom half, just regrow the top. The only reason he looks like he's a humanoid form is because he thought he was Alec Holland.
Okay.
So Swamp Thing is whole again, and that's when he like causes these flowers to like bloom around Man-Thing. They're like these pretty flowers, and Man-Thing's like all distracted, like, oh, pretty flowers. Then like they bloom and open up, and they like spray like this sedative gas. Oh, that like calms down Man-Thing.
A sedative gas that calms him down. He has no lungs. How is he gonna breathe this sedative?
I don't know.
So he just walks right through those flowers, basically. He might pick one, just put it in his hair.
There you go.
But he's still walking towards Swamp Thing. And at this point, he's close enough to actually make contact with his claws. And he shoves his clawed hand right into the middle of Swamp Thing's body and pulls out like a green heart or something.
No, there's no heart.
Damn it.
There. There's no organs.
Well, he just keeps ripping then, and he just keeps on like tearing Swamp Thing's body apart and he doesn't stop as Swamp Thing's body is trying to reform itself.
No, Swamp Thing just abandons that body. Then he just appears nearby elsewhere from another plant, like one of the flowers that he grew.
Man-Thing's frustrated. Well, that's when Man-Thing picks up like just this giant stick that's on the ground that was left over from the tree, and he throws it, and it sticks right into Swamp Thing, and it impales him. And I know that's fucking doing nothing.
And then like Swamp Thing just makes the stick like part of his body.
Okay, whatever.
So Swamp Thing, he's pretty intelligent. He was a doctor.
Whatever.
He sees that like they can't really hurt each other physically. So what he does is he tunes into the frequency of the green that makes Man-Thing exist. Okay? So now he can control Man-Thing's body. Okay? And then he just makes Man-Thing continuously punch himself in his face.
That's not going to do anything. Punching himself is not going to hurt himself.
And then he punches himself right in his like schlong-like nose.
Still not going to hurt him. So
then he just like disintegrates his body and just spreads it like over the entire planet, so you can't like reconstitute.
Except Man-Thing accesses the nexus of all realities to teleport each fragment of his body into one location, which is right behind Swamp Thing, which I don't know if he could actually do.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna say he does it, and then he just crushes Swamp Thing to death or something. I don't know. There's nowhere else for this speculation to go. So let's go ahead and end that here. We'll go ahead and run the simulations and find out who actually wins this match.
Let's do it.
Well, I am fucked. We put all the stats into our simulation runner, and Man-Thing, he's a great guy. He just doesn't have a whole lot going for him in terms of speed, in terms of intelligence, and in terms of like fighting skill.
Neither does Swamp Thing for that stat category, but almost in every other one, Swamp Thing came out on top.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, we did say that Man-Thing is a little bit more evasive in that we consider him more intangible than Swamp Thing. Like, Man-Thing is comprised mostly of like mud and like fluid material, whereas Swamp Thing is comprised mostly of more solid like branches and vines.
Yeah, it depends on who's drawing him. It depends on what vegetation he's used to grow his body. So this stat category was a little bit of a stretch, but yeah, we're saying Man-Thing is a little bit more evasive than Swamp Thing.
We're saying take a giant axe to each one, and who gets hurt more with that axe.
Right.
We're saying Swamp Thing. That being said, Swamp Thing has much more damage potential, he has a much greater range, and he's a little bit stronger than Man-Thing.
And smarter.
And smarter.
And
Fuck!
And better looking.
No way! Man-Thing is so much cooler. I thought Man-Thing would have this, if not through the stats, at least in our scenario, in that I just planned on burning every single thing that Swamp Thing touched Man-Thing with. That being said, since Swamp Thing can keep Man-Thing at a distance and slough off, any burned material, as well as generate new plant material, it's going to be really hard for Man-Thing to win this one. So I think we all know how this match is going to go, but let's go ahead and get the figures. So the winner between Swamp Thing and Man-Thing, obviously,
It's Swamp Thing.
Unfortunately, is Swamp Thing. And he won 837 matches out of the 1,000 battles.
Nice.
That's pretty one-sided.
Very one-sided.
I always thought this would be a closer match than it turned out to be, but I'm glad that we kind of settled this.
Yeah, I bet you're really wishing you would have gone with Groot now.
I still don't know. I think this would have ended up the same. I think considering that Groot is less indestructible, put him at a disadvantage, although Groot does have like a greater range because he can like extend his body longer and harder than Man-Thing.
Ew. I don't like the way you said that.
All right, that does it for this match, though. Go ahead and write in to us and let us know what you guys thought about it. If you agree or disagree, you can reach out to us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And again, you can find links to each of those social media sites by visiting dynamicduel.com, which, as we mentioned at the top of the episode, has been redesigned to a cool, sleek new site. So check it out.
Yes, because you could also get access to our bonus content and our merchandise store, which is on TeePublic. And again, if you use the link that's on our website to access that, you could get a discount on your first order.
Yeah, of up to 35%, which is a huge-ass discount, so take advantage of that, guys, for sure. This week's no prize that Jonathan will be drawing will be of Man-Thing, so if you've ever wanted like a Man-Thing t-shirt or just like a Man-Thing mug to show off to your coworkers, again, dynamicduel.com is the place to be.
In our next episode, we will be reviewing X-Men The Last Stand in our lead up to our review of Dark Phoenix.
Right, Dark Phoenix comes out in about 3 or 4 weeks, so in build up to that, we're going to be doing X-Men themed duels as well as review Dark Phoenix. So look forward to that. And again, if you guys could please subscribe to our show if you haven't yet, and share it if you have with people that you think would enjoy this content, that would be fantastic. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Until then,
up and away,
true believers.